Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How you doing? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I'm Brandon Sylvia. I appreciate y'all for stopping by. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. It is now time to talk about, if we're being honest, what we all tune in to the Game Awards to see. That is the announcements. That's the reveals. I already got my predictions for the different awards up and available now that you can go and check out. But we're all there for the announcements. I'm all for showing some love to the developers and giving them their praise. But, I think the most exciting thing is the reveals, is the announcement. So I got, when I began preparing for this thing, may have gotten a bit overzealous, jotting down just anything that came to my mind that I thought could potentially show up at this showcase. So it's a big ass list. So go ahead and grab you some damn popcorn, a beverage, whatever the hell you need to get you through this video today. I'm going to try to rapid fire run through these bad boys one by one, and I want to go ahead and lay out immediately out the gate. I'm not predicting that every single thing I talk about here will be nominated. I'm just kind of going over and analyzing just some of the different possibilities, the some of the more likely ones, some of the unlikely ones, the dreams, my hopes. I'm doing the full 9 yards. I'm trying to cover all my bases here, and then at the end of the video, I'll lock in like 20 specific predictions. So let's start off pretty safe, and then we'll kind of get a little bit more outlandish as we go on. So let's start off with some updates. And I am recording this on November the 14th, so the day after I just uploaded my Game Awards predictions, the categories predictions. I'm recording this the next day. So from anytime November 15th and beyond, all of this shit could change and be subject to change, so keep that in mind as well. But we'll go ahead and start very safe with something that I think is less of a prediction, more of a confirmation, something that I just want to, something I'm just really happy about. And I want to give it a quick shout out. It's looking like Baldur's Gate 3 will be getting an announcement of its physical release at the Game Awards, and it's going to be getting an announcement of its Xbox release at the Game Awards. So I'm expecting a release date for both, the physical edition and the Xbox version of the game. Probably, I would assume, on the same day, or it'll probably release physically and on Xbox the same day. So I'm very excited about that. That's where I will be picking up Baldur's Gate 3. I will be grabbing a physical copy of it. They announced I think it was through PlayAsia, they had the physical version available for pre-order that was going to be shipped out late December. And I thought about grabbing it, and then I read there was a bunch of cut content and a bunch of restrictions and shit. So I'm hoping this will be the ESRB release, the North American release, and I'll grab me a copy of that thing, and that'll be my 2024, probably multiple hundreds of hours sunk into that in 2024. So I am damn excited to see that officially revealed. And then moving from one very safe prediction to another, Silent Hill 2 is looking like it will be revealed with a release date for Q1 2024 at the Game Awards. People are speculating February, I believe. I could maybe see that. I could also see it being maybe announced for February. Well, I don't know. If they say February in mid-December, it probably will hit that February date. I was going to say I could see it maybe being pushed back to March, April or so. There's a bunch of really weird speculation with this game going around right now. People thinking that you're going to be able to play as Pyramid Head, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's just some miscommunication. If you are allowed to play as Pyramid Head, then I don't know what the hell Bloober has going on over there. But I do not. There's no part of me that even possibly believes that'll be the case. I think that it's just some miscommunication. The description for the game said something like getting to play or getting to experience an origin story as Pyramid Head. The wording was really funky, really weird. I don't think it means you're going to be playing as Pyramid Head. I hope to God that's not the case. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that we'll see this pop up at the Game Awards, and I'm pretty confident it will have a release date attached to it as well. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say February, but I would assume sometime between February and April. I've talked about this one in the past, which, I mean, I've talked about Silent Hill 2 in the past. I've probably talked about quite a few of these games in different prediction videos in the past. That's the benefit of getting shit wrong quite a bit. I can reuse some of these games in the next prediction video. Like I said, I don't know if I said this at the start of the video. I'm not a goddamn insider. I'm just an idiot on the internet speculating, so take all of my damn predictions with a grain of salt. Don't come to me looking for an insider. Come to me looking to, hopefully listen to someone talk about video games and just kind of shoot the shit about video games. Kind of try to throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what I'm doing here with Greedfall 2. I want to see this. This is very much a want. This is very much a hope. But I also don't think it's anywhere near out of the realm of possibility. I think it was supposed to come out in 2023. I know the first trailer that we saw for Greedfall had a 2023 window at the very end of that trailer, so I would assume, a re-reveal at the end of 2023 at the Game Awards with some gameplay. The first Greedfall 1 was very, very ambitious, trying to, be that diet BioWare experience, and I think they very much nailed that in an era where we weren't really getting what we wanted from BioWare. It was a welcome treat with Greedfall 1, so I'd be happy to dive into Greedfall 2. Unfortunately, Greedfall 1 was a bit on the buggy side, so hopefully they've cleaned that up. Hopefully they've worked on the combat a little bit. I'm hoping they don't go too Soulsy with the combat, with their last game being a Souls-like with Steel Rising, but they can take some of those lessons and iterate on that and make it into this BioWare-esque action RPG. I'd be curious about that. But I have to imagine if they had a 2023 window at the end of that first trailer, then I wouldn't think this is much further out than like late 2024, maybe early 2025. So I think it's within the realm of possibility that we see this at the Game Awards. Judas was revealed for the first time last year at the Game Awards. Do we see it pop back up a year later? Does it reveal, show face, give a release date, show some more gameplay? Do we see some more Judas? Ken Levine's new game that looks very BioShock-esque in all of its just entire DNA. It feels pretty much like BioShock 4. So do we see it pop back up here with a release date? We did see a little bit of gameplay in that first trailer, not a ton, but I could maybe see getting a little bit more gameplay, getting a release date for that thing. But I think if I had to put money on it, I would say maybe this is more likely for a Summer Games Fest, summer 2024, and then a release mid to late 2025. How about old Sandland? I feel like this is one that's probably prime for a release date announcement. We know it's supposed to come in 2024, talking about Akira Toriyama's anime, that his anime franchise that is being spun off, being adapted into video game form here with this Sandland title. And I think this game just looks really cool, honestly. It's like this Mad Max open world third-person action adventure game, also with mech combat and with vehicular combat. Got some twisted metal energy fused in there. This just looks really interesting to me. I think it's perfect time to get a release date. I think this would be a great just kind of middle of the show, throw it in there, quick 30-second, 45-second trailer with I would assume probably pretty early 2024 release date. Hey, dude, I think there's probably a lot of anime fans that are really looking forward to this, and just having a nice little in the middle of the show release date given for it. I think people would be pretty hype. I would be pretty damn hype about that, and I'm not even an anime fan. And from Toriyama to Toyama, how about we talk about some Slitterhead? It's been a hot minute since we have seen anything on Slitterhead. And I'm, creator of Silent Hill. I'm down to let that team cook. Bokeh Game Studio. Let them cook. Let them take as long as they need to get this thing fleshed out. I remember there being some reporting that it was going to be a bit more of an action adventure style survival horror experience, like emphasis on the action. So I'm curious about this game. I think when it got revealed, 2021, I think it was revealed for the first time at the Game Awards. So been a couple years, popped back up at the biggest show of the year, and then survival horror, the renaissance is real. It is taking place. It is in full swing. So perfect time to get one of the OGs back into the game with maybe at the very least an official gameplay trailer. Maybe not a release date quite yet, but an official gameplay trailer, and then maybe see this thing come out in 2026 or so. And moving on into another Konami legend, do we see anything from Mr. Kojima himself? Him and Keighley are boys, they're thick as thieves. Do we see Kojima appear with either Death Stranding 2, or do we see a little bit of Overdose, which I'm assuming Overdose will be the cloud Xbox title. If I'm being totally honest with you, here's my hope for Kojima. I hope he has Death Stranding 2 off cooking in development. I hope he has Overdose off cooking in development. And I also hope he has the little cloud Xbox title off cooking in development. And they're all three separate things. Like, I really want Overdose to be a fully fleshed out, like really heavily funded AAA Kojima survival horror experience. Let him fully expand where that mind was going with PT. Like, let's see him really delve into the world of survival horror. And I know Kojima Productions probably doesn't have 3 teams actively in development on 3 different games internally, but I don't know. That's just kind of where my brain goes. That's what I hope for. I think the most likely scenario is that Overdose is the cloud Xbox title, and it'll be a much, much smaller scale experience. Now, anything Kojima does has my attention. I played the damn Amazon delivery game just because it had Kojima's name attached to it. Didn't like that shit at all, but I'll play anything with that mind behind it. So as soon as you say cloud gaming to me, I put my damn earplugs in. If Kojima is what you say before you say cloud gaming, God damn it, I gotta take my earplugs out. I gotta at least see this thing out. So if it is Overdose, if that is the cloud game, I'll be playing a little Kojima survival horror cloud title. Kojima gonna have me out here playing fucking mobile games. I will say though, the one exciting thing about the possibility of this cloud-like experience is it might not take all that long to develop. You know, say it's only a 2-3 hour game or even less. Maybe this could be a pretty quick turnaround for Kojima. And we know this thing is in active development. There were like screenshots of in-game footage, if I'm not mistaken. And you could maybe make the argument that this would be probably like one of those Xbox Direct events where it's just, hey, we're shadow dropping this thing just the same way they did Hi-Fi Rush. Little quick jump in experience on Game Pass. 2-3 hours, you're done. Kojima fucks with your save files or does some interesting shit in the cloud. But who knows? And who knows with Death Stranding as well. Does Death Stranding 2, I know it was revealed at the Game Awards, I think. Was that revealed at it was either revealed at a PlayStation Showcase or the Game Awards, but does Death Stranding 2 not pop up again until the next PlayStation Showcase? Do they save Overdose for the next Xbox Showcase? So there could be a potential reality where we don't see anything from Kojima. I'm not 100% certain. A game I am pretty confident we see is Black Myth Wukong. We've seen a lot of this thing and a lot of like real gameplay running, like 10 plus minutes of real-time footage of this thing running. And that leads me to believe this game will release at some point. Sometimes I see those quick, spliced up edits of games that have been in development for years and years. I'm like, all right, what was the one Where the Winds something? I think this was at Summer Games Fest a while back, and it looked a lot like Ghost of Tsushima, and I was like, oh hell yeah, it looked great. It did look great. Phantom Blade Zero was another one where I'm like, I could see this maybe not being a real game, but I think Black Myth Wukong, I think that is going to be an actual real game. They're saying it's going to release in 2024, so I think this will pop up here. I think we will get a pretty early 2024, early to mid 2024 release date for this game given. And this thing might be something really special. Definitely keep your eye on Black Myth Wukong. I have talked about this next game so goddamn much. Hellblade 2. The last time we saw real gameplay of this was at the Game Awards, I believe. I think that would have been 2020. Or, no, that might have been 2020. Yeah, 2021, because it's 2023 now. So it's been about 2 years, I think, since we've saw real gameplay from Hellblade 2. And that's what I want to see here. I want to see an expanded version of that. And it doesn't need... they showed, like, full gameplay running in real time for Hellblade 2 at the Game Awards in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really want to see that, necessarily, because I don't think that showed me much. I want to see, like... It's so fucking funny. I'm just talking about not believing the spliced up trailers, but I do believe Hellblade 2 will come out. Ninja Theory, they will put the game out at some point. That's a super talented developer. I would like to see some cut up footage of this thing and like the variety on offer with gameplay. I want to see a little bit of the puzzle solving. Has that been improved and overhauled drastically? I hated the puzzle solving in Hellblade 1. I don't need to see a ton of the cinematics and the psychosis and the audio design. Like, I know that's going to be incredible. Just show me some, is the gameplay going to be enjoyable? I understand this is not an experience that is supposed to be fun and a joyous occasion, but you do want to kind of enjoy having your hands on the controller and playing the game. I just want to know that the gameplay will actually be something that you actively want to play. And I mean, a release date for this or Avowed, I think is kind of needed, because I don't, well, I'm saying that Xbox did in the year that Halo and Forza Horizon 5 came out. They were launched both in Q4. Both of their biggest games of the year launched in Q4. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the same thing happens with Avowed and Hellblade. But my theory, my thought, was that this would be the time to announce a release date for either Avowed or Hellblade, unless they wanted to wait all the way until June for their next showcase. Which, I mean, they could have a direct sometime between Game Awards and their showcase, but if you want 100 million eyeballs on it, like, not that you're not going to get that type of viewership at the damn developer direct thing. You'll get great viewership at your showcase, but not the developer direct. If you want to have the real eyeballs on it, drop that damn release date at the Game Awards if you're confident in it. And I mean, that first game dropped in 2017, so we got to be getting kind of close to about time for a release date right around the corner, I would suspect. How about goddamn Hollow Knight Silksong? Where the hell did Hollow Knight Silksong go? I think we got to see this. Hollow Knight Silksong has to be at the Game Awards, or if it's not at the Game Awards, I'm just done believing that this thing is a real game at this point. I have a feeling that this is the type of thing that shows up at the Game Awards and is like announced for the release very, very soon after, like a month or two later. I could be very, very wrong in that assumption, but I don't know, I got a gut feeling I'm going to run with. I think we see some Hollow Knight Silksong at the Game Awards. You guys might not remember this next one. It's one that escaped my brain as well. Like, I had the thought of, I was like, what the hell was the name of that game? This horror space, and I'm going through looking at all the upcoming space horror games, and I finally found it. It's a game called Routine. It was revealed at Summer Games Fest, if I'm not mistaken, a few years back, and we haven't seen anything of it since. It very much had some Soma energy to it, a kind of like an 80s sci-fi horror vibe going on with, I believe the lead composer was Mick Gordon, so you know the soundtrack is going to be absolutely excellent. This was the game that was in development for quite some time, and then the team completely, they scrapped it and reworked it to modernize the visuals and the gameplay and all that. They totally overhauled the experience, but we just haven't seen anything on it in a long time. And what we did see from before, while the atmosphere was tense and all, you know, it was kind of weird. It was a very tense atmosphere, but also a very simplistic feeling and kind of like a minimalistic design. But it still kept a real creepy vibe throughout it the entire time, a real creepy atmosphere. So I would like to see more on this. I am getting a little bit burnt out with the first person kind of walk around exploration style horror games, but every now and then one just really, really clicks with me. So we'll see. I would like to see some more of Routine. This next one I think is an absolute lock. Tekken 8, it releases in January. We'll just get a little bit of marketing going on here. This next one I'm really curious about. The Splinter Cell remake. It feels like it's been ages since we've seen this thing as well. And Ubisoft, they're kind of piquing my interest a little bit with some of the moves they're making, with something like Assassin's Creed Mirage, a game that I really didn't love much at all, but a smaller scale, a tighter focus. Supposedly it sold pretty well. So is Ubisoft kind of looking at some of their IP and going, hey, maybe we should scale this back a little bit. Maybe we should get out these 8 to 15 hour linear experiences. And what better game to do that with than Splinter Cell? I can't say I'm all that confident that we see this game anytime soon, but I do think this would probably be a huge success, especially with the era we're in, with the remake, the nostalgia just being drip fed to us and we're consuming it like junkies. Splinter Cell remake in 2023 makes a lot of sense if they can get this thing out in a mildly competent manner. And we'll stay here with Ubisoft for a second, and this definitely isn't in their smaller game lineup, but the Star Wars Outlaws. And even I believe one of the lead developers is like, yeah, you can beat this thing in 30-40 hours. So it's not a crazy Assassin's Creed Valhalla scale experience, but holy shit, I am highly anticipating this game. This might be my most anticipated game of 2024 if it comes out in 2024. There was recently some rumors that Ubisoft is delaying one of their big games to 2025, or I think they said delaying it out of the first half of 2024. I forget. I'll pull up the exact quote and then put it in here. That way you can read the correct statement and not my fucked up version of it. But I'm hoping that this isn't the game that slips. Actually, let me take that back. Let me step back. I don't care if this game slips to 2025. I just want it to be really solid, because this is like the dream Star Wars experience. I love Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, don't get me wrong. But the experience of having a little bit of agency in a Star Wars world, having the vehicles, exploring space a little bit, having that Han Solo kind of experience, being a bit of a mischievous character. That is the shit that just really sells me on Star Wars. So of course I'm hoping it's not delayed, but more than anything else, I'm just hoping we get a fucking great Star Wars experience out of Outlaws whenever it releases. That is priority number one. If it's 2025, 2026, keep letting that thing cook until it's ready. How about we stay with the Star Wars theme here for a second and talk about Star Wars Eclipse, the Quantic Dream title. I know it was talked about that this wasn't going to come out until 2027 or 2028, and I could see that for sure with that first trailer. That first trailer was boy, oh boy, I don't think we're going to see anything like that in the game. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't underestimate Quantic Dream in the same way that a lot of people do. I think Quantic Dream, Detroit Become Human, in terms of fidelity, in terms of just a showpiece visually, Detroit Become Human is something special. That thing, from a technical standpoint, and even from the branching dialogue options, that game is really something special from a technical standpoint. But there was a lot going on in that Star Wars Eclipse trailer, and I'll have it running so you can see what I'm talking about. This looks to be one of the craziest, most ambitious Star Wars games ever. The actual game we play is going to look nothing like that. We all know that, and that's why I believe a lot of the assumption was made that this isn't going to be released for a long ass time, which would lead me to believe we don't see it here. But there's that little part of me where it's like, I don't know. I don't doubt Quantic Dream as much as most people do. So I could maybe see this thing popping up here and giving you, maybe not a release date or even a release window, but just popping up and actually showing you the gameplay, actually show you what they have in development, and then this thing launching in 2026 or so. We also got to consider the fact that 2027, that sounds crazy, but we're only about 3 years away from 2027, which is really fucking scary. But that does mean that this game isn't, even when you say 2027, that's not super, super far out, especially when you think about how those marketing campaigns used to work like 5 years ago or so in the game industry, where you would see something revealed for the first time in 2010, pop back up again in 2012, and then see a trailer every single year for it for like the next 5 years. And it was just this prolonged buildup to not almost every game, but a lot of damn games that were doing this. So if Quantic Dream is still in this archaic, let's build up this game, let's build hype around this game for the next 7 years before release, then maybe that is what we could see here. I also remember we had the confirmation of the Respawn first-person shooter, Star Wars first-person shooter, and then there was also the rumor that Titanfall 3 was in development. I have a hard time believing that Titanfall 3 was in development. Well, let me say this. I have a hard time believing that we'll see a Titanfall 3 before we see their Star Wars first-person shooter. You just got to imagine that they're not going to slip on that Star Wars bag. If they got that license, they're going to maximize the shit out of that license right now. They're going to try to get all the profit they can from it as quickly as they can from it. And you can't blame them. That's a humongous license to have. But I would absolutely love to see Titanfall 3 get revealed. Titanfall 2 has one of the sickest single player campaigns in a first person shooter game that I've ever played in my life. It's so good. The story is so much better than it has any right to be. Let's kind of stay with this theme of licensed games. And I think we gotta see. I'm not saying we have to see it as in we will see it, but I would imagine if I had to put money on it, I think I would say that we see the new IO 007 game. It's been a long time since this has popped up, and I know it was just kind of like the, hey, we're hiring style trailer. When we first saw it, there was nothing there, but I think there was a report that they were supposed to drop this by 2025, if I'm not mistaken, and then we saw the report a couple weeks ago that this was going to be like more of a Daniel Craig style Bond game than a Roger Moore style Bond game, and maybe a little bit less stealth focus, a little bit more kind of straightforward third person action adventure experience on offer. And I know some people are like, man, I don't want to see IO depart from their roots of, very, very tactical stealth experiences. But my favorite 007 game of all time is Everything or Nothing. That was Pierce Bronson, if I'm not mistaken, for the PlayStation 2, EA game, I believe. I loved that third person, just very action oriented on the motorcycle, scaling down the building. Like, that is a dream 007 experience. To think about what that could be like with modern fidelity, the modern graphics, that would just be such a sick experience, while also having some of those IO elements in there with maybe less stealth focus, but still having some stealth aspects in there. You are, at the end of the day, you're a fucking spy, so stealth does play a major part in the Bond universe, but blending that together, like maybe taking out 25% of the stealth and upping the action, putting 25% of the spice in the action bucket, and then kind of mixing that up and seeing what formula you can create. I have all the faith in the world that IO will knock this thing out of the park, and I actually am somewhat confident that we could see this here. But on the other end of licensed games that I have almost no hype, no excitement for whatsoever, we have Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and yeah. We just had that report from WB that they're gonna double down on live service games after releasing the most popular game of the year with Hogwarts Legacy. That was a single player open world experience that sold like 20 million copies in 0.2 seconds. I don't understand. I don't understand companies. It's like, does everything have to be Fortnite money? Does everything have to be Call of Duty money and Grand Theft Auto money? Can you not be satisfied with selling the having the highest selling game of the year with Hogwarts Legacy? How does that not go? How does that not go into your brain and you go, huh? Let's go back to Batman. Let's try to do Batman like that again. You remember that Superman game that y'all pitched, Rocksteady? You think you could make that kind of like how this Hogwarts game is? Or, hey, Avalanche, let me give you, let me give you one of these IP. Let you go work on this Superman game. Let's pull Flash out. Let's pull these different characters out. And let's crank out some of these single player high quality experiences. And maybe those will sell more than any game in their release year as well. But regardless of my personal opinions, this has to pop up here. If it doesn't pop up here, that pretty much means that it'll just re-reveal with a trailer or like in a blog post or on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like this has to reveal here, re-reveal here, and then we'll see what updates have been made, what edits, what tweaks have been made to this game, because it's supposed to release in February, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be here. I can almost guarantee that. I probably need to hurry my ass up and quit my damn rambling. I'm not even halfway through my list here, but I love these videos. These are like my favorite style of videos to make. Just some good old mindless speculation, looking across at the industry and then looking at what's to come. And I absolutely love this style of shit. So I hope y'all don't mind a overly long ass video today. But another superhero game that I'm really curious about. I don't think this will be the time for this game to be revealed, with them just releasing Dead Space. And I'm sure they have multiple teams working on these games, but I think they're probably going to go full steam ahead now that Dead Space is released, is the EA Motive, their new Iron Man game. And EA, they've been on a roll. They've been on a roll with their single player output ever since 2019 with Jedi Fallen Order. So EA Motive knocked it out of the park with Dead Space. Don't really have much reason at all to believe they won't have similar success with Iron Man. We've never had a good Iron Man game. The PS2, PS3 Iron Man games were not great at all. I understand that that's kind of a hard character to get right, but at the same time, when you look at Anthem and that technology with the traversal, with the flying, and even the Capcom game Dark Void, you kind of have the making of a solid Iron Man game somewhere in there. You just, you gotta get more right than just the flying. I do understand that, but even Avengers, some of the Iron Man segments I thought were really cool. It'd be nice to have a bit more freedom flying around, but I think you could probably also make it work with a more linear style experience with some kind of sandboxes to play in and have each level built around like a very specific sandbox that you enter into, and maybe have side objectives in each of these small open worlds, like very small outer worlds style open areas. Obviously, you're going to have tons of environmental destruction. That's just an absolute given with the way that character plays. But I'm curious about this. I'm really curious about this. I think that team's damn talented, and I can't wait to see what they go to. I know that they developed the Squadrons game as well, so they make some good shit. 2 for 2 so far. And I guess bouncing back to WB for a second, that Wonder Woman game. We saw that for the first time a couple years ago at the Game Awards as well. Just a very quick, pretty much nothing ass trailer. This one I'm worried about because I wonder if it's early enough in development that WB could get its greedy little fingers in there and then fuck up the pie and then add some monetization elements to it, add some live servicey multiplayer elements to it. I would really hope not, with this being the team that created those Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor games that are beloved single player experiences. I would hope that they kind of have a clear direction that they're going, that they're pursuing with Wonder Woman. And that's just such a fun character, because if we're not going to get a Superman game that's kind of the close, well, Iron Man somewhere close in there as well, just being able to totally fly around, which I guess Spider-Man and Insomniac was like, well, if y'all aren't going to do any cool flying mechanics in your superhero games, we'll make fucking Spider-Man fly with his wingsuit. But it's undoubtedly time for an update for Wonder Woman. Do we get it? I would be more inclined to believe we probably don't. This might once again, this looked like the come work here style trailer, so I assume it's still somewhat early along in development, but I'd love to see an update just to know that, hey, you know, we're one of the last WB games that were greenlit before the full live service initiative began. We still are able to create a game that's not totally bogged down with unnecessary monetization and unnecessary multiplayer components. This next one, you might think I'm crazy for even thinking it's possible for this to be announced at the Game Awards. And once again, I know I've said it 100 times. I'm not predicting everything I'm talking about will be announced. I'll save that for my final 20 predictions at the end of the video. I just kind of want to look across the landscape of like what is possible, to be announced at the Game Awards. And this next one, in most instances, most years, you would say that's not possible for that to show up at the Game Awards. And that is Insomniac's Wolverine. And you're like, dude, that's not going to pop back up until the next PlayStation Showcase in 2024. But are they going to have a PlayStation Showcase in 2024? What do they have to showcase? What does PlayStation have to showcase in 2024? I'm assuming Ghost could pop up at a 2024 showcase, but I don't really know what they're releasing at this point. I mean, their first party release schedule for 2024 just seems absolutely barren. And I mean, if Silent Hill 2, the rumor is that it's going to pop up at the Game Awards and get its release date, then, you pretty much lose all of the pizzazz there of having that at a showcase. And if it's going to release in February, it's probably going to release before a showcase, so that probably won't even be in the showcase. Like, I just don't know if you have enough content, enough exclusive content to host an actual showcase. Maybe a state of play, maybe just get a new re-reveal at a state of play for PlayStation in 2024. But if you want to, put a release date on this game, if you want to get it in front of 100 million eyeballs, then the Game Awards is probably your best bet if you're not going to have your own showcase. I guess you kind of could make the argument that they could just rely wholly on third-party content to fill their showcase in the same way they did with the 2023 showcase, and then have Wolverine be the big headliner, which maybe that does actually make more sense. The only thing I'm curious about with this Wolverine game is when I heard that it was in the same universe as Spider-Man, a part of me was like, oh, cool, they can do some connected universe type shit. But another part of me was like, ooh, are we going to run into a T-rated Wolverine game? And I know just because they're in the same universe, it doesn't mean they have to share the same ESRB rating. But for whatever reason, some alarms went off there. And it's probably just my skepticism, my pessimism coming out. But I don't know. It did kind of worry me a bit. Because, you look at the Wolverine movies and those two films opposed to Logan, the film with the R rating versus the film with the PG-13 rating. Like, you just can't do you could do an X-Men T-rated game for sure. Especially, I've talked about it a million times. I gotta fucking quit rambling. But doing, the X-Men Evolution style experience in video game form, dude, hell yes, that would be so fantastic. And you could absolutely do that with a T rating. But a solo Logan-driven project, a solo Logan-driven game, it's got to be an M rating. Just like a solo Wolverine movie, it has to be an R rating from this point going forward. There's no, you have to have the dismemberment, you have to have the gore, the blood, the carnage, the chaos, the rage kills. Like, it has to be gritty, full of profanity. It has to be that. It just has to. Logan is a dark fucking character, so I hope they lean into that full force, and I think this will be Insomniac's big breakout title in the narrative department to let people know, like, yeah, we create awesome gameplay loops, but we can crank out an all-time great narrative, which I think they did with Spider-Man 1, and I can't wait to see what they do with Logan. But as curious as I am about that Wolverine game, I think I'm a little bit more curious about the new Skydance Amy Hennig Black Panther Captain America game. We got that nothing ass glimpse at what did they call it? Their little Disney game showcase in 2022. Not a good event. Not a good event at all. This was like supposed to be the star of the show, and it got revealed, and we didn't even get a name for the game. But Amy Hennig is an OG, and she is kind of at the helm of this project. Skydance starting up a new video game arm, breaking into the video game space at a AAA capacity. And I mean, with Disney not doing I don't think they did one of their Disney game showcases in 2023. It seemed like that 2022 showcase was a bit of a one and done, which I'm okay with. Let's save the big reveal of that Amy Hennig, AAA Black Panther Captain America game. Let's save that for the Game Awards. So it'd be fantastic to see that pop up here. I wouldn't say it's like a 0% likelihood, but I would imagine it with that Nothing Ass trailer that we saw last year that this thing is still very, very early along in development. All right, but that's a lot of superhero talk. We'll hop off of that for a second. I think something that we absolutely 1000% see at the Game Awards is Elden Ring DLC. FromSoft and Keighley seem to have a damn good relationship. I think Armored Core 6 was revealed at the Game Awards. Elden Ring for the first time. I think we saw gameplay for the first time at the Game Awards. So there's a budding relationship taking place there. I think if Elden Ring DLC is announced, it will be announced at a Keighley show, either Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards here, and I would probably bet my money on the Game Awards here because FromSoft, they're out there cooking. Armored Core in 2023, Elden Ring in 2022, Sekiro in 2019. I mean, they have a really, really consistent cadence, and I imagine Elden Ring's probably pretty early-ish in 2024, sometime reasonably early in 2024. I'm not saying Q1, but I would assume somewhere Q1, Q2, 2024. I would at least predict it releases before the next Summer Games Fest showcase. So a reveal at the Game Awards, I think that just makes, 100% sense. I really think an opening reveal, like I think this should open up the showcase to make motherfuckers pay attention, be like, oh, okay, this is opening. Well, we gotta pay attention to what's coming next. What's gonna close this thing? They're opening up with some heat, so we need to stay tuned. But going from an incredibly consistent developer to a not so consistent developer as of late, we gotta talk a little bit about BioWare. I love BioWare, one of my favorite teams of all time. I know it's not the same staff or even remotely. It's a shell of itself at this point. I understand that, but Dragon Age Dreadwolf, if this isn't at the Game Awards, that would mean that this is probably a 2026 release or so, I would assume. Because if it's at the Game Awards, I think that still gives it a high likelihood of being a 2025 game. Because we haven't seen a minute. A minute. That would be mind-blowing. We haven't seen a millisecond of gameplay from this thing. So if we get a little decent look at gameplay with a 2024 release date, like a nebulous 2024 window, you know that's 2025 without a doubt, which I'm fine with that. If we don't see it at the Game Awards, that means it's 2026 or later, confirmed. Because damn well Keighley has hit up BioWare, has hit up EA to see if they can see. Can I get some of that? Can I get some of that Dragon Age? You got any Mass Effect for me? You got any Dragon Age for me? And Dragon Age is the one that is next up. So if there's anything ready to show, I have to imagine Keighley would have got it. And if it's not there, boy, I'm going to be a bit more worried than I already am. And I love the idea for what they were pursuing, a God of War style combat system, but still focusing on the agency and the character driven experience and, that role playing experience that you get from a BioWare game, that you get from a Dragon Age game, but giving you crunchy, solid action RPG combat. Like, that sounds fantastic. Just stick to your vision, stick to your guns, get it out. I know people are going to bitch about everything. I hope to God they're not in there trying to rework entire systems because of a few whiny ass fans. Go cook, get your game out. Because, I mean, if they really stick the landing, if they really nail that God of War combat loop, and then offer up all the agency and freedom, like, that's something that we would have never seen before in this industry. And I'm really hopeful, and I'm also incredibly skeptical, and I'll be triply skeptical. Is triply? I don't think that's a word. I'll be even much more skeptical if this thing doesn't get revealed at the Game Awards. This next one I don't really think is possible at all, but I think it could be a cool transition shot if Keighley had it set up this, which I mean, yeah, well, of course he knows what's going to win in advance, I would assume. I don't know how the hell they run it, but this would be kind of cool. Just think with me here for a second. If Alan Wake 2 won like best game direction or best narrative or whatever, and then as soon as they come up and accept their award, which they often don't even come up and accept awards, unfortunately, but let's just say in this scenario they do, and then it cuts to black, and then you get the Max Payne 1 and 2 reveal official gameplay trailer. Like, that would just be a perfect setup in my mind to build anticipation for Remedy's next title, to get it back to the roots and see where to see how far they've come from Max Payne to Alan Wake 2, and how all of it kind of led up to this moment, and then going back to it. That'd be beautiful. I don't know if y'all saw this, but we got that re-reveal of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 a couple months ago with the gameplay trailer, and it didn't seem like this made a big splash. Like, I didn't hear a lot of news outlets talking about this. I was really looking forward to Bloodlines 2. The game looked really interesting, and it seemed somewhat far enough along in development. I know they showed, I believe, 10-15 minutes of gameplay footage at one point. I could be wrong on that, but I remember seeing the game just running and looking pretty fine, looking fun, to having narrative, branching narrative options, and different spells and different powers and shit. But for whatever happened along the road, they ended up canceling developers. It's now being developed by, or switching developers. It's now being developed by the Dear Esther team, the Chinese room, which doesn't necessarily sound like the best fit for this style of game. And the gameplay trailer that we saw that it was re-revealed with didn't leave me entirely optimistic about the future of this game. It looked a little bit choppy, a little bit framey, but really the thing I'm the most curious about is just the narrative. So do we see it pop up at the Game Awards and go a little bit more into the narrative, still showing you, yeah, you still get your agency and your branching narrative options, and you still have all of that shit that you would expect? Because to me in that trailer, it looked like it just turned into a straight up action game, and I don't think that's really what anybody's wanting. But I'm not saying that's what the game did turn into, but I think that would be the Game Awards would be a great place to reintroduce people who may have forgotten or maybe worried about what this game has turned into. Just be like, hey, yeah, you still got all of your freedom with the narrative and all the choices. It's all still here. Don't worry about that. And they were, in that trailer, they said a fall 2024 release window, I believe. So perfect time, I think. Game Awards is perfect time for the biggest stage to market this thing on before fall 2024. All right, so how about that? We're finished with part one of this damn prediction extravaganza. Now we head on over to the world premiere. The world premiere debut announcement trailers that we could possibly see at the Game Awards 2023, December... Is it December 7th or December 8th? I feel like I keep getting this wrong. But whatever damn day it's on, I can guarantee you this. Capcom says it has a heavy hitter AAA title releasing in the first half of 2024. So it is primed. It is ready to be revealed here at the Game Awards. And we have options. We have Devil May Cry 6. We have Resident Evil 9. Or we have Monster Hunter World 2. It's going to be one of those three, I would have to believe. You could maybe throw Pragmata in there, but I just kind of doubt it. I don't know. For whatever reason, I just doubt it. But maybe that is a realistic possibility. I would say I'm still going to go with Resident Evil, a new Resident Evil game, rather it be 9, 5, Code Veronica, remake of 1. That's option A. DMC 6, option B. Monster Hunter World 2, option C. And out of those three, I think I would say you look at the cadence of Resident Evil and it's easy to go there that it's going to be Resident Evil, but I actually think it's going to be Monster Hunter World 2. The first game, Monster Hunter World 1, was released in 2018. Their biggest game to date. Monster Hunter World is Capcom's, I believe, their biggest hit financially ever. And so you got to imagine that they want to get out a sequel to that game. They want to get a Monster Hunter World 2 onto shelves, into people's hands. And I think it's happening. I think we see this thing at the Game Awards. And Capcom's been great about their reveal to release schedule. They when they reveal their games, it's not long at all before you see that thing on store shelves. So Monster Hunter World 2 officially revealed in December and then released in June or so, I would say. I tell you, a team that I really have my eye on, I don't have a clue about what they're working on, and it's probably way too early for them to reveal anything, but Ember Lab, the creators of Kena, their debut game, looking like that, playing like that team has the juice. That team, they're gonna keep your eye on that team. They are going to make a juggernaut at some point. That team is going to develop a juggernaut at some point. Like I said, I think it's probably too early to see their next game unless it was just a really quick kind of teaser shot with just the name of the team and maybe just kind of one of those we're hiring style trailers. I could see them getting an IP, you know, with that kind of Pixar-esque presentation. I could easily see someone looking at this team and be like, hey, come work on this huge, we want you to adapt this huge franchise into a game. I would not be surprised at all. There's all that talk about the Spider-Man, you know, the multiverse or across the Spider-Verse or whatever, them wanting to try to adapt that into a video game. That's a team that could probably pull that off. I know the art style is not exactly the same, but I don't think that team would have much of an issue transitioning to that style of aesthetic, that visual aesthetic at all. So we got some details about the next Far Cry game, Far Cry 7, with it being more of this time looping, kind of death loop inspired structure to the game where you're having to save this family. It's a hostage scenario. You have to save this family within 72 hours. It might not be a family. It might just be individual people that are captured on an island or something, and you have to save all of them in 72 hours, and you have to figure out the correct method to save each person in this window. And Far Cry, I mean, it's always been heavily rooted in an immersive sim-esque experience, and I know that Arcane gets all the praise and rightfully so for really leaning into that, and Far Cry doesn't lean into it as heavily, but I think that having a death loop, you know, having death loop on your inspiration board and trying to achieve that with Far Cry, I don't think that's like too far of a jump. No disrespect to Arcane, but I think they could probably nail that. And you got to imagine that the next Far Cry game is right around the corner. You know, with Far Cry games were almost annualized at a certain point, and with 6 launching in 2021, then this, I would assume that this is going to release by 2025 at the latest. Staying with that idea, that whole theme that I hit on earlier about Splinter Cell and Ubisoft wanting to kind of get these more tight experiences, I wonder if they ever return to Rayman. I feel like with them doing the Prince of Persia 2D game, throwing back to that, I wonder if we see a 2D Rayman game return. I know the one that they had that full engine for, that was beautiful. The visuals were just beautiful on the last Rayman game that they released. I think people are more eager for those style of experience. I know it's, if they expect it to sell millions and millions of copies, I mean, that would be absurd. But if they had reasonable expectations, which I hope and assume they have for the Prince of Persia game, like sell 2 million copy, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Having that 2 million number is like a goal. I think that as long as the budget is designed around hitting 1 million to 2 million sales, a Rayman game would be awesome in this day and age. And just that thing that we talked about earlier about us gobbling up that nostalgia, I think that we would be hot. People would be so excited to see Rayman pop back up, much more so than they were like 10 years ago or whatever. A game I actually would put money on that we see is Dragon Ball Tenkaichi 4. I think this is supposed to come out early 2024. So if I'm not I'm not big into the fighting game space, so I don't know if we've saw gameplay of this. Obviously, I'll search when I'm editing for this video to throw in gameplay if there is gameplay for it, but I don't remember seeing any gameplay for this game at all. So if this is supposed to release early 2024, they need to begin marketing the shit out of this thing. So, I mean, popping up at the Game Awards with some actual gameplay and with a release date, I think makes all the sense in the world if it is indeed going to hit early 2024. Even if it's going to hit mid 2024, like Q2, Q3, I think that we probably see this here at the Game Awards. This next one might be a little bit more in dream territory than anywhere in the realm of reality. But I do wonder, could we see The Witcher 1 remake for the first time? It's been announced, but it hasn't been officially like revealed with a trailer with some gameplay or anything like that. Could we see The Witcher 1 remake or The Witcher 4? I would very much be curious to see anything else in the Witcher universe going on. A little update, little trailer. I know we're not gonna see Orion, the new Cyberpunk game. I'm well aware that we're a ways out from that, and I would assume we're a ways out from anything Witcher related releasing. But I mean, they have a lot of different teams working on these games. It's pretty damn hard to keep up with, but I know they have a lot of Witcher projects currently in development, quite a few. So if we saw one of those, I would definitely be surprised. I would definitely be very, very shocked, but it's not, I don't think, impossible. And for this next one, we know whenever this game is revealed, it will be with one of Keighley's shows, Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards, and that is Hazelight's next game, Joseph Fares's next game. I'm assuming another co-op, couch co-op style experience like It Takes Two, like A Way Out. I'm assuming that will be what in the vein of what his next project is as well. We know without a doubt Keighley is going to get that announcement for certain. And I mean, if you look at their release cadence, if you look at Hazelight's release cadence, it was 2018 for A Way Out and then 2021 for It Takes Two. So you're looking at 2024 or 2025 if they keep up that same pace. Their next game should launch somewhere in 2024 or 2025. So this probably would be the time that it was revealed. I've predicted this next one about 852 times to no success yet, but I'll keep throwing it out there. The Crystal Dynamics, the Amazon I think Amazon's funding it, the new Tomb Raider game. Supposedly this is going to release before their Perfect Dark game releases that they're developing for Xbox. I have no idea about either of those games, and I suspect by the end of the Game Awards this year, we'll still have no idea about either of those games. This next one is probably not one that would show up at a Game Awards or at an E3 unless it was specifically like an EA style event, and that is NCAA Football 2025. these games, they don't really need any sort of big marketing push. As soon as people know they're available, they will go out in droves to pick those bad boys up. And the one thing I would say that separates this, that makes this a little bit different from the other sports games, the annualized sports games, is there hasn't been one since 2014. So there's supposedly it's going to release in summer 2024. I don't necessarily believe that. I could very well be wrong, but there hasn't been one by the time it releases, without a doubt, it'll be a decade before we have seen an NCAA football game. And I think that alone makes it such a bigger deal. And if it does pop up at an event, it kind of makes it just a little bit cooler, in my opinion, than it just being announced with a trailer, which I obviously it doesn't need any of that shit. It doesn't need any of the marketing. It doesn't need the Game Awards. These things sell unprecedented numbers. But it's like, I don't know, that would just be a really cool moment to see it revealed amongst other hotly anticipated games, and have that moment where fans are like, shit, yeah, hyped as hell. Sports fans can have something that they're when they're tuning on, turning on the Game Awards, tuning into the Game Awards, where they're like, shit, dude, fuck yeah, I'm stoked to see this officially revealed for the first time at the biggest show in gaming. But staying on track there with EA, we have that Black Panther game in development by Kevin Stevens, the ex-Monolith lead. He's got his new team, I believe Cliffhanger Games is the name of that team, working on a Black Panther title. And I'm loving this reinvigorated single-player focus over there at EA, and they got a ton of Star Wars and Iron Man and Black Panther. They're really leaning in heavily to the licensed game bag, and also with the EA originals, Immortals of Avium, all the Joseph Fares stuff, and they're doing some Wild Hearts. They're doing some pretty cool shit. So I know it's easy to dump on EA, easy to shit on EA. They've definitely made some massive mistakes in the past, but also got to give credit where it's due, and I've been loving this new direction that they're pursuing. I'm not sure how long this Black Panther game has been in development. I think it was announced for the first time late last year or early this year, so it probably not time to see it, but worth speculating a little bit, worth keeping an eye on that. And now moving to some ex-EA, an ex-EA developer who went and founded his own studio, Humanoid Games. Casey Hudson, ex-lead on Mass Effect and KOTOR, very, very influential in the BioWare glory days, and they are now working on a AAA, it's known as a AAA multi-platform science fiction single-player narrative-driven experience. Not much at all is known about that game beyond that, but once again, I assume if we saw it at all, it would just be kind of like a, hey, we're hiring style trailer. But very exciting to know that an instrumental key player in Mass Effect's success is off making another AAA science fiction game with his new studio. I like the sound of that. All right, so that's going to wrap up all the world premieres that I think we could possibly see. I'm not saying we see all of those. Those are the world premieres that I think even 1% likelihood of popping up at the showcase. Just throwing little darts at a board, seeing what sticks. And now we move on over to the dream picks. This is where shit gets fun. This is where you can go any which way you want to go with all the understanding that there's no reality where any of this shit comes true. And with that said, I think we have to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6 first here. And I know speculation and rumor is running rampant right now about GTA 6 is going to be announced at the Game Awards. And believe me, I want to be a believer. I really do. I love the Game Awards. I absolutely love the Game Awards. I want it to be a titan of the industry. It is already a titan of the industry, but GTA 6 showcasing there would put it into a different stratosphere where every big AAA game from now to forever would want to be showcased there. But that's the thing, is that, like we talked about with NCAA football or an NBA 2K, Grand Theft Auto is so ubiquitous. It just doesn't need to be associated with anything or anyone. It's going to go viral just from a tweet, just from a post on YouTube. It doesn't really need to be associated with anything. And I don't really know what Rockstar gains from announcing it at the Game Awards other than just it being a really cool moment. But I would argue that why would you announce that you're going to release your trailer early December for Grand Theft Auto 6 if you were going to want to have that cool surprising moment at the Game Awards? It doesn't really make sense, because the first thing that people think whenever you say early December is, oh, it's gonna pop up at the Game Awards. Unless, I guess I didn't think about this scenario. Like I said, I'm recording this on November 14th. They could, in the weeks to come, build the Game Awards around Grand Theft Auto 6, and then like every day Keighley on Twitter saying, hey, GTA 6, it'll pop up at the Game Awards, it'll pop up at the Game Awards, and that's kind of like a big driving factor for viewership. But once again, what does Rockstar gain from that? And I don't mean to be rude. I love the Game Awards. I absolutely love the Game Awards. I enjoy Summer Game Fest. I think Keighley's like a legitimately, seemingly pure intended good leader, good kind of powerhouse of the games industry. He's always seemed very games focused and very like he's always seemed to have the interest of these publishers and developers, and showcasing the latest and greatest, and showcasing the up and coming titles, and really trying to shine a light on what is to come, the coolest, best shit to come in the industry. And I mean, even I remember watching Keighley back in the day on like the G4 TV, whatever, G4TV.com. It was like one of the first gaming podcasts, and he always was very game centric, very knowledgeable, seemed to play a shit ton of games, have serious passion for the industry, and he seems to still have that passion for the industry. So all respect to Keighley. I know people like to shit on Keighley. People like to shit on anybody that's in a position of power, but I would much rather have someone like Keighley kind of being the puppeteer, orchestrating the goings on of the industry than some of these, just absolute shitbag billionaires. But with all of that praise, with all of that said, I still would have a hard time understanding what Rockstar would gain from showing it there, unless once again it's opposite ends, where Rockstar's like, okay, but this is a pure intended show that's all about pushing the industry forward, which I really do think it is. I honestly do. I believe, Summer Games Fest, the Game Awards, I really do. A huge part of those shows is just about pushing the industry forward. And if Rockstar wanted to, spread some of that goodwill and announce their game at a showcase that they believe in. But that just seems like too humane. There's just too much corporate greed, too much corporate interest tied into all this shit. That would seem too wholesome to be true. So with all that being said, I'm going to throw Grand Theft Auto 6 down as one of my dream picks. I unfortunately don't think it's possible. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think it's possible. We talked about Resident Evil earlier. I think the next thing we're going to get from Resident Evil is probably RE9, and then probably RE5, and then probably RE1 remake after that. I would obviously love to see Code Veronica. I've talked about this 174 times. I'll talk about it until I'm blue in the face. That's one of the weirdest, just creepiest Resident Evil stories, and I think in large part that's probably a big reason why Capcom is avoiding going back to it, because it's strange. It's undeniably fucking strange. Staying right there with Capcom, Dino Crisis, of course, we're all longing for this, waiting for this, and instead we'll probably get a sequel to Exoprimal. And from one hard-headed company to another, Square, what the hell are you doing? Reboot Parasite Eve. I know that there's some licensing issues. You don't have to call it Parasite Eve. Call it the Project Eve, which was, I think that was the name of Stellar Blade before Stellar Blade became Stellar Blade. They called it Project Eve. Just take that name. We'll know what it is. There is a survival horror renaissance taking place, and you're fumbling the bag. Square, you're fumbling the damn bag. Get it together. Go crank out a Parasite Eve spiritual successor. Just copy everything that Resident Evil does. Just copy it and then sprinkle some damn RPG seasoning on top of it and go make yourself a bag. Go get you probably, I would assume, an easy 5 million sales off that. And now to transition over to X Square Enix owned IP, Legacy of Kain, Deus Ex. It seems they're probably not in much better of a place than they were with their previous ownership. Now being owned by Embracer Group. Embracer Group is imploding. I would love for one last ditch effort they announce one of these two games and it's like, oh, okay, we might actually see the release of Legacy of Kain or Deus Ex, at least one game from one of these prestigious developers before this damn company, this experiment that we call Embracer Group, implodes in on itself. And jumping back to sports for just a second, after playing wild card football and seeing what they did with the NFLPA licensing agreement where they could have like older NFL players and that they could have, even current day NFL players as long as it's under this licensing agreement, the NFLPA, I would absolutely love to see like what they did with All Pro Football 2K8, but All Pro Football 2K25 or whatever, having these classic players, having, even some modern day players who are eligible to be included in this game. There's no better time to strike than right now, seemingly, with these players having a little bit more freedom to be in different projects. And you don't like in All Pro Football 2K8, you didn't have a ton of players. If you just had maybe double that roster size with more modern guys, or, at least dudes from the 2000s and late 90s, people who are still, I'm not saying people who are from the 80s and shit aren't relevant, but people who are a little bit more relevant to a modern audience. And on the basketball end, I know this isn't as creative of a pick, but I would just like to see the return of NBA Live. I don't know what the hell happened. I believe there was supposed to be like NBA Live 2020, I think, was in development, and I guess it got canceled because we haven't seen an NBA Live game since 2019. If I'm not mistaken. And if I'm being honest, I actually really enjoyed NBA Live 19. I thought it was wonky and weird, and it wasn't as good as the 2K games, but I enjoyed their more street focus and having that side of the story going on, and there was some interesting stuff that I think they could dive into a bit further. I wouldn't mind a fully like 3-on-3 style NBA Live, just all street basketball, or even, if they kept it 5-on-5 and just went into like a street focused story and didn't put all the emphasis and effort into the simulation play and then the online play. I think that's the difficulty with separating yourself from 2K, is trying to do something that they're not doing. And because if you just copy what they're doing, you're not going to be able to do it as well as they do. You know what I mean? So it's about trying to find your identity, find what makes you different, because they have become they've become the juggernaut of the NBA simulation video game space. And I think at this point, dethroning them is just, it's a waste of effort, in my opinion. So finding your own niche, your own lane, maybe not having a $200 million budget, like cranking out something that maybe even just a straight up single player story driven game where you create a guy and it's like an RPG basketball style experience. And I guess tying straight into that, another thing that I am dying for is this WWE RPG that was confirmed to be in development. There's some WWE RPG game in development, I'm assuming 1000% with all the certainty in the world without it being actually confirmed. I am just 100% confident that this is a mobile game that they're talking about. But in the off chance, in the 1 out of a million possibility that this is not a mobile game, a WWE RPG, even if you look at something like WrestleQuest, which we'll talk about that at a later time, buggy as shit, totally busted, rough, real rough. But something that's inspired by that, it doesn't have to be a crazy big budget thing. Like they could. I remember that canceled game they were just like brawling out in the middle of these streets. I don't remember the name of it, but it was so arcadey and over the top. I think there are ways to do WWE games because it's such a personality driven sport or experience, whatever you want to call it, that you can definitely step outside of the traditional setup for a WWE video game, and people I think will still buy into it. Like, I know Crush Hour didn't set the world on fire, or Battleground didn't set the world on fire, but All Stars, WWE All Stars, people really enjoyed that. I know that still is in the squared circle, but I think if you just make something really cool, people will buy into it. Because, I mean, there is so much brand loyalty with the WWE, and you just can't expect that to be the end all be all. You actually, have to make a product that people actually want to buy. And I don't think that is solely restricted to only being a game that is centered in the ring. Like, I think you can expand beyond that, but it actually has to be a good game beyond that. We've talked a lot about Ubisoft here today, but we haven't talked about the best Ubisoft game that has ever been created, and that is Beyond Good and Evil. And we definitely haven't talked about Beyond Good and Evil 2 because we all know it'll never happen. They don't even have the damn dignity to cancel this thing. They just keep stringing us along with these little periodic nothing-ass updates, and they say it's still in development. We're seeing a slight transition to I would say, a healthier Ubisoft seemingly overall. I don't know the internal goings-on, but it feels like Ubisoft is turning over a new leaf, so maybe we do see a Beyond Good and Evil 2 at some point, but every part of my being tells me we won't, and that is just heartbreaking, and that's why I'll always just have it here as a dream pick, and I'll never actually expect it. And we'll close off the dream picks here with The Wolf Among Us 2. I think, unfortunately, with the layoffs and shit that happened with Telltale just a few months ago, that The Wolf Among Us 2 is probably going to get canceled, and I think Telltale will probably go under sooner rather than later. I fucking hate that. I bought The Expanse. I supported The Expanse. I had no interest in The Expanse. I literally only bought that game just to put some extra cash into Telltale's pockets in hopes that would ensure, if enough people supported that we would get The Wolf Among Us 2. I'm not holding my breath. All right, now it's time to head over to my final Lock It In predictions. Earlier in the video, I think I said I had 20 final Lock It In predictions. I just counted them up. I have 18 final Lock It In predictions. These are safe. You can bet the bank, bet the mortgage, bet the marriage on these picks, and you'll become a very wealthy human indeed. Gambling problems, visit 1-800 fucking whatever the fuck and figure your shit out. All right, my final Lock It In predictions: Tekken 8, Silent Hill 2, Sandland, Elden Ring DLC, Black Myth Wukong, Hellblade 2, Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi 4, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, Slitterhead Greedfall 2, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, Suicide Squad, Hollow Knight, Monster Hunter World 2, IO's new Bond game, Hazelight's new game, Kojima's, I'm going to say Kojima's horror game. I'm going to say we see Overdose, probably the Xbox Cloud title. I don't think we'll see Death Stranding. And finally, my 18th pick, Far Cry 7. So those are my final predictions. Looking over it now, I think that might be slightly too stacked. I could see quite a few of these not coming true, but that's the fun of all this shit. Over speculate, overhype yourself and then be disappointed. We do it every time. That's what gamers are best at. Overhyping ourselves, getting real hyped up about some shit, and then it being just slightly under our expectations, and then we're disappointed about it for a day until our fucking rabbit brains forget. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and now it's time for me to edit this long-ass video. So if you enjoyed this long-ass video, make sure to like it, share it with a buddy, drop a comment down for the algorithm. All of that good stuff helps out the channel massively, and I'm going to try to cut this thing down, to chop this thing up in every which way to make it somewhat palatable, somewhat watchable for you guys. I definitely got to work on my pre-production skills a bit, but hey, here we are. I like rambling. That's the name of the channel, so shit, what can you expect? But I appreciate you, my good people. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.